Hey guys, so in this one wanted to talk about agents with their tools and there's a difference between tools and nodes. Even though they can do the same things, there's a difference. So let me real quick just drag in an agent and this is going to be a tools agent as you can see, and we're just going to talk about what I mean by saying there's a difference between the tools and the nodes. So first of all, let's just connect a chat model. We're going to use 4 Mini in this case, and now we have the basic setup, right? So what we're looking at is agents can have tools, right? These are the things that we connect. So these can be end-to-end workflows that we build out. It can be something as simple as like a calculator. It can be all these tools right here, which are other tools. This used to be called nodes as tools, um, because basically all of these, the reason that they're tools is just because we can easily hook them up to our agent to have the agent intelligently fill out the different parameters. So what I mean by that is let's say we're using a Google Sheets tool. Um, we're going to call this update contacts. And I know you guys have seen, I've maybe overused the example of like sending an email tool, creating a calendar event tool. So we're going to just do something else, but ultimately it's always the same in the sense that when you're setting up a tool, there are usually things you need to configure. And the things that you need to configure, the agent or the large language model that you're using has to intelligently configure that. And that's the whole reason, that's the whole point about tools. The second point about tools is that the agent has access to these tools in order to decide which one to use, which is different than nodes that usually will be like a workflow. So let me just show an example real quick. Um, let me show an example real quick. So let's say this is an agent, right? And its only goal is to fill out this sheet, which we're going to be looking at this one that I just set up for tool testing, where we're trying to fill in the name, the email, and the biography of someone. So um, what we would do is we need to configure this tool. So every time that we use a tool, no matter what type of tool it is, there's all of these different types. Within it, there's going to be things to configure. So in this Asana tool, we have to configure the workspace name, the operation, the resource, what we're filling in. So every tool that we have has a configuration panel, and that's what we need to set up. So in this first case, what we're doing is right now the operation is set to get rows within a sheet. We don't want to do that. The operation that we want to do is append a row. So we're going to be adding a row to a sheet, and now we choose the document and we choose our sheet. So the document is called tool testing. The sheet is called sheet one. And right now we're choosing from a list, as you can see. You have the ability, if you want to more dynamically select different documents and sheets, you can choose by ID or by URL, which would be grabbing the URL or ID from up here within your Google Sheets. And the idea would be maybe like beforehand, you'd be getting them all, and then the agent's able to decide which one it wants to update based on the title. Don't think about that right now if that's confusing. We're just going to focus on, let's say we're always going to be updating the sheet. And now you can see we have these values that we want to send. So this is the ones that we want to update, or not update, sorry. We want to append a row in our Google Sheet with these values. So what I'm going to do is click on this button to let the model define what goes into this one. So it knows it's looking for a name, here it's looking for an email, and here it's looking for a bio based on the way that we talk to the agent. Now, if we need to, we're going to test it out first, but if we need to, we can add a description. So let's say it's not able to pick up what the bio is. We can add a description and say, here's what you're looking for, and give it some examples or explain what it's looking for exactly. So for now, we're going to try this. The agent has one tool. We haven't even system prompted it to say use update contacts to update contacts. We're just going to try to chat with it and see what happens. So I'm going to say add Nate to my contact database. His email is nate@example.com. He is a 22-year-old man from Chicago. Okay, so we'll send that off. Okay, it is hitting the tool. And what we're going to do is we're going to be able to click in here, and we'll be able to see. I'm gonna click in. Okay, there we go. So we have the output. This is what, based on our query, which came over here, which was add Nate to my contact database. His email is nate@example.com. He's 22 years old from Chicago. The tool and the model realized, okay, out of this text, I need to extract a name, an email, and a bio, and that's what it did over here. So nate@example.com, 22-year-old man from Chicago. If we click into the Google Sheet, we can see that was in fact updated over here. So that's how we set up this tool and configured it to make sure that the model could understand what we're sending over. So real quick, if I was to come in here and say bio, this is the age of the person, only extract the age. So we'll do that. We'll just run this exact same prompt again. So I'm going to hit this one off again. Now we should be seeing our bios updated with only 22, nothing about Chicago, even though it's the exact same prompt. So we'll click in here. We'll now see that the bio was updated with 22, and we come into here and we can see that's what we got for our bio, because we were able to give it a description right here that defined what it was looking for to fill in this parameter intelligently. Okay, cool. So that was a quick Google Sheet tool. But now, like I said, the difference between a tool and a node. So we have the ability to hit plus or tab if you want to. You can hit tab and you'll open up this menu. And we want now a Google Sheets tool rather than a Google Sheets node rather than a tool. You can see the differences here. So in the sheets, the exact same thing we want to do is we're just going to append a row in a sheet. The configuration panel looks similar, right? We're able to choose the document, which is tool testing. We can choose the sheet, which is sheet 1. Same thing, we have to map the columns. But now we don't have that button that lets the model define this parameter because it's not hooked up to an agent to use its brain to figure out what goes in here. So this is it works the exact same, right? Like we can manually fill in Nate, Nate at example.com, and then 22. And I can hit test step, and it's going to fill in that stuff because we hard coded it in. It's going to tell us success message is true, and it's going to tell us what came over here. And if I come in here, we can see we got that row added once again. So the difference here is this is meant to be in a workflow where the parameters are coming over predefined. So what you could do is, like, let's say we had this, right? So we have the option to either interact with its agent, or we have the option to interact with, an OpenAI node that's going to be message a model. And all we're going to do in here is say, here is the incoming information. I'm going to make this an expression, and I know that this is going to be json.chat input with a capital I. The reason I know that is just because I've played around with n8n multiple times, but if I were to hit this off, problem running the workflow, okay, I don't have a credential or a model chosen. Let me set up a model real quick, 4O Mini. We'll hit this off again. We'll see it feed in here, and it's getting, as you can see on the left hand side, json.chat input. So now it's getting this information as a user message. Now what I can do in here is say, extract the following information from the incoming message. We want to get the name, the email, and the bio. And I'm going to output this content as JSON, and I'll show you guys. Actually, no, we'll leave this off, but just keep in mind we will want to. So first, let's test this. Let's see what comes back. We're getting the name is Nate, the email is nate@example.com, and the bio is 22-year-old man from Chicago. So that's correct. And now we hook it up to this tool or this node. And what we want to do is be able to dynamically drag in how this tool, this node, oh my gosh. Sorry, I might just be confusing you guys even more. We want to define how this node is going to update these values. But we can't really, we need to get them separate. We need Nate to be in one field, the example to be in one field, and the bio to be in one field. If we dragged in this, it's going to update everything into one cell in Sheets, and we don't want that. So that's why when we come into here, and we output the content as JSON, we'll hit test step. Hopefully it goes into 3 different fields. There we go. So name, email, although bio got split as an object with different things within it. So what I'm going to do is say, extract the following information from the incoming message. Each parameter should be an individual string. So we'll try that, hit test step, see if it comes back. There we go. Now we have exactly what we want. And now in this node, we can super easily, change these all to an expression because we're dragging in different things. The name, the email, and the bio. So there we go. So now we can hit test step. It's going to pop into here. We can watch it live. Right there, it just popped in, and we got this success message was true. So now this workflow right here is doing the same thing as this agent, but the agent has to decide what tool to use. So if we were to add different tools and then this was like a non-deterministic workflow, meaning based on the actual input message, something different would happen. It's more, variable because the agent uses its brain and its intelligence and its tools in order to take action. Whereas down here, the only workflow scenario here is adding a name to the sheet. So let me just do a different example down here. we want to say add Kelly to the database. Her email is kelly@example.com, and she is 33 from Maryland. Okay, so you can see it's going to extract the information, put it into the sheets. We'll pop into the sheets so you can see. There we go, Kelly, 33 from Maryland, and it worked like that. And we can go back over this way, and we can send the exact same message once again. And it's going to be the agent using its tool intelligently in order to decide how to send that information over. And we can see we got the exact same thing again. So that's a sheet tool, and that's a sheet node. And hopefully by now you can understand like the difference between, in this flow, we were able to process this information step by step in a linear way, because every time the chat trigger goes off, if it's connected down here, it's going to go here first, then here, then here. But with an agent that uses different tools, we could have a send email tool hooked up. We could have a calendar tool hooked up. So I'm not going to configure them all the way, but I'm just going to show you. Like, we could have a Gmail tool hooked up. We could have a calendar tool hooked up. We could have some Slack tools hooked up. And the idea here is that we just have one central place to speak to this agent, and then it will be able to decide which one of these tools to use based on our input. It could even be, hey, can you update the contact database? Could you create a calendar event and then also send an email? And it will intelligently go bam, bam, bam. Rather than here, it has to go step by step. So it would error right here. If we asked this workflow down here to send an email, it would error because it doesn't know how to fill in these parameters, and it would just mess up this request. So that's kind of the difference between an agent and like a AI workflow, because this is still using AI to intelligently extract the information we need from this query down here, but it's not using agentic, non-deterministic logic of we put in an input into the agent, it's going to be different every time. It might not always call all the tools. It might call one of them. It might call none of them, but that's the variability. Whereas here, it's going to be the same step every single time, or same steps. So yeah, that's the difference, right? And then as you can see, we just have to configure these nodes, but they're the exact same as like we're creating an event, right? You choose a calendar, you choose a start time, you choose an end time. That's how you create an event. Similarly, if we were to grab a Google Calendar node rather than a Google Calendar tool, we could do the same thing. We could create an event, and it's hooked up all the same way, but there's no option for us to, let's say for attendees and for summary, we would have to be feeding this in dynamically from something beforehand and dragging them in from left to right. Rather than, in this case, when we're creating an event, if we wanted to add a description and a summary, we can have the AI decide based on our incoming query what to make these different parameters. So that's really the main difference here. One important thing to understand will be, when do I use nodes? When do I use tools? Sometimes there's a mix of both. Sometimes there's instances where you'll have an agent with a few tool calls here, but then after that, you're not going to have an agent, or you're going to have sequential stuff. So let's say the example was, every time, this agent gets triggered because we say, hey, can you write Nate an email about, can you write Nate an email based on today's daily sync? The process could be, let's just say for this example, we're using Pinecone because, whoa, what happened? So the process could be, okay, yeah, here's an example. Let's say what we want to do is we want to be able to send an email to someone based on different types of information. So we could have a database about projects, a database about meetings. We could have other information that we may need to variably look up. So we could have the agent decide, okay, I need to get this information. I need to get Nate's contact information. But then after I do that, I'm always going to send an email. So why would we want, sorry, I'm just trying to make this more visual. So while you could have this flow be grab information, and then a tool that would send an email, like if we use the Gmail tool here to send an email, it could be this. But if that happens every time where the process ends with an email, why would we not just bake this in as a node over here, rather than having the agent have the decision-making capability to potentially send an email? Maybe it messes up. Maybe your system prompt isn't good enough and it actually fails sending an email. It's better to just bake that in. So when you're deciding how this workflow is going to work, how your workflows, how your agentic systems are going to work, the best thing to do, in my opinion, is to write down the steps. What are the processes involved? What are the potential tool calls? Sometimes there's tool calls that might not happen every time, but then sometimes there are that happen every time, no matter what. Like let's say every single time before we send an email, we need to get contact information. So you could potentially work that in over here with, like, let's say you have contact information in a sheet. You could have that over here up front before you feed into the agent, or even like right here, rather than making that a tool call, because it happens every single time. So my point is writing down the steps of the process, wireframing it out so that when you get into end-to-end and you want to start building, you know exactly what you're doing. At that piece, or at that point, it's just like connecting pieces, like you're looking through some sort of Lego instruction manual on how to build the thing. When you sit down and build, you have all the instructions right here and you know where things go, and it's going to save you a lot of time when you're actually in this building environment. Now, obviously things will come up. There'll be some failures that you'll have to test and work around, but it's a lot better than getting into end-to-end blind and not knowing what this process is going to look like, because it's so much more frustrating once you have something built out and you realize it's not optimal and you realize it's going to cause issues down the road, which is why you want to do that all up front. So I hope this one helped. If you guys got any questions about it, please let me know. But like I said, important thing to understand is like nodes versus tools, but also like when to do a workflow and when to actually have an agent with non-deterministic, intelligent decision-making capabilities. So I'm gonna leave it there, but hope this one helped. Thanks, guys.